So I don't think that we've done an episode together. I know we haven't done an episode together. And I wanted to bring all of you here because I was thinking back to 2021 when I did a series on FCA and there were no coaches. Like it was just me. And it's really cool to see how we've expanded because in 2021, I was like a lot of my content, and some of you probably remember, was about how awful support coaches are, how you should never have them. And I always knew that I would eventually bring somebody into my space, but we were just having the conversation about how I do not want any stray cats in FCA, jokes aside. Like I want to make sure that anyone that is supporting my clients it's a very intentional selection. And so, all three of you, Elena, Lindsay, Sam, like you've been in my business or a client or with me for years, actually since 2021, right? And so it's really cool to have this conversation now with all of you and to see how things have changed. And so my hope for this is that if somebody is questioning FCA as a whole, they're going to get clarity from you guys on what the experience is like being a client, right? And just going through that, because my goal was that, okay, if I bring in somebody else, I bring in these coaches, and I don't like using the word support coach. I always say success coach, because none of you are replacing me. And that's the point that I really want to get across. And so we'll talk about that today, but I'm going to call on you guys one by one and just have you explain kind of what you do inside of FCA. So Elena, I'll start with you because you were kind of the first coach that I brought on in like not a sales role, but like a success coach role. So talk to me about what you do.
Hello, everybody. So I am a success coach, but that for me is pretty much, I do weekly calls. I do office hours with everybody, which is super fun. And I'm in Slack every single day, twice a day. I'm answering all of the random ass questions that come through that people have when they're first starting their business. As Taylor said, I've been a client of yours. I think I had my first like official, quote unquote, like official, mentorship with you in like March of 2021, believe it or not. And then I was a client. And so have been with Taylor for a long time and I've gone through FCA myself more than once, just as a business owner myself, and knew that it was something really amazing. But I feel like it's so different than other things that I've experienced in the past because I'm not the only person in there, and like Taylor is still in there, and like Lindsay and Sam are very much in there. Like it's funny to me sometimes too, because like I'll go in to Slack and somebody's asked a question or they posted a piece of content for audit, and like there's like 3 people that have already like commented and chimed in on this, and it's like, wow, cool, you having multiple perspectives from multiple business owners that are in the game successfully, giving you this advice as a quote unquote newbie potentially to the game, maybe have 0 clients and you have all of this knowledge and all of this experience at your fingertips. That's incredible. And then what I really enjoy about it is with the weekly office hours calls, right? It's like, oh, it's just a weekly call. Like, what could you possibly do? Anything and everything. Anything and everything. Really, one of the things that I kind of pride myself on with the weekly office hours calls is I pay attention to the trends, questions that people are asking, skills that people tend to be struggling with, what is happening this week in Slack, what has been something that's come up quite a bit, what do we need to talk about, and as well as giving space for people to ask their own questions and get them answered in real time. But there's not like this week we're talking about this and next week we're talking about this. It's all very much dictated by what the FCA coaches, the coaches that are in FCA, are doing. Like, what are the real time problems coming up and what do we have to have conversations about? And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy most about it, is that it's truly an organic experience, And
I'll break down kind of the structure of office hours, just because if you're listening to this, I think that there's this assumption that like everyone's just hopping on a call and it's 100 random faces on Zoom. And so I'll dive into why that's very much not the case. So I'm going to get a different perspective because when Elena came in, we were just growing very quickly. And, to her point, we're constantly piggybacking on each other's answers, right? Now, it doesn't mean that every piece of homework you submit, all three of us are going to look at. Like, that's not the reality of it. But one thing that I make sure, and Lindsay and Elena both know this, is that when we get a new client and they submit their first 2 weeks of homework, all of us are jumping in so that we all know exactly what your vision is for your business, exactly what your niche is, and exactly where you want to go so that we all can best serve you. I want to ask Sam about kind of her role and what she does, because I find that most of these programs at this level do not have a sales coach on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's true. There's not a lot of programs with a dedicated sales coach. So I'm the dedicated sales coach for FCA. And what's great about that is I'm only focusing on that area of our students' businesses and FCA. So there is just a lot of support around that. It's a big part of being able to run your business. I always tell our students, if you're not making money in your business, it's just a hobby. So that's what we're really trying to help a lot of our students with, is get them out of that place where they're offering coaching to people for free, or maybe working for a really low hourly or package rate at a gym or somewhere else, and get them to this place where they can actually turn this into a business that pays their bills, supports their lifestyle, and can be their full-time gig at the end of the day if they want it to be. So what's really cool about the sales support in FCA is we have 2 calls a month specifically to focus on that area of your business, a dedicated channel in Slack. There's just so much support when it comes to that, because we know that that is the fuel for your business at the end of the day.
And one thing that we do in FCA, which again, we're constantly adding and adapting because the market is constantly adapting. And so one thing that I pride myself on with this offer is I'm always updating modules and updating curriculum and giving you like the version 2 and version 3 of things. And one thing that we found that we needed and didn't have at the beginning, which we do now, is a lead tracker, right? Like the example and a template for tracking your leads. Because what is the biggest problem with sales, aside from just, doing it, is where do I track my leads? And I didn't want my clients using a notes document on their phone. I didn't want them to, have to purchase something like an Airtable. And so we have templates for that. And every single week, you are required to submit that, right? And so Sam is looking at those and making sure that, you're actually adding warm leads, that we're actually adding things to that, right? Because ultimately we're auditing your business on a weekly basis from a sales perspective, from a mindset perspective, from an efficiency perspective. Like there's nothing that all of us are not looking at. Sam, when you're doing your office hours, what would you say are like the top 2 problems that you're solving for our clients that are helping them become more successful?
Mm-hmm. Number 1 is, where do I find clients? And then I would say the second one is, how do I even talk to them? Which, yeah, those are 2 very beginner things, but you'd be surprised. Even our students who come in with a couple clients under their belt, maybe they successfully got their first 5, but that was kind of them, using all of the resources that they had. And now they're like, I have to branch out into completely new people. And that can be a really tough thing as well. So it doesn't matter if you're coming from nothing, or even if you have a small roster, it still can be a difficult thing to navigate on your own. How do I find people? How do I start those conversations? How do I even progress them? And that's where we come in. We teach you the strategies on how to easily find the leads. And then also how to open up conversations. That's a skill that a lot of people just may not have right away. And it's something that we really want to help you develop. We can tell you where to find leads, all day. It's a really easily learned skill. All of our students can do it successfully once they've had some time in the program. But being able to actually nurture those conversations, that's a higher skill set where you're going to need support. You're going to need feedback. So we have students who are able to have us look at conversations or support them with conversations to progress them to the point of getting those clients and actually getting them signed.
Yep, I agree. I mean, there's nothing in the sales process that we don't go over. And I think that Lindsay, well, we'll get into you in a second, because you're just a different one for what I'm about to go into. Lindsay's like just waiting. She's like, I don't know what you have prepared, but probably something that's embarrassing. But Elena, while she didn't start an FCA, we first had a call while I was launching FCA for the first time. So like both of these two women have gone through the process, which is how they've built successful six-figure businesses, right? So like the process works. Sam is just a wizard with sales, and I'm very fortunate to have her, you know, and started out selling FCA, which is so interesting to now coach FCA clients to sell. You know, it's just like funny to see how like it's all grown. But ultimately, the questions that we're constantly working through are, how do I sell? What do I say? How do I structure calls, right? All of those questions, the objection handling, there's nothing about the sales process isn't covered. And even if you are somebody that maybe has a ton of referrals, or you are making 5K months, but you can't quite hit that six-figure mark, right? Then, you know, clearly something is broken in your process, because we can't build a business off of referrals alone. They're amazing. We love them, but I want to make sure that you understand how to sell your offer repeatedly. And that's what Sam is doing, right? Lindsay, all right, your turn. Tell me your role in FCA, which I'm excited about because we just added this role a few months ago. So you're still getting acclimated, but give me kind of the summary of what you do and how it's different than the other two.
Yeah. So I'm also a success coach, but I do like onboarding calls. So all the new FCA clients will get an onboarding call with me, so we can make sure that there's no like questions, you know, especially for people who have maybe never taken a course before. They're, you know, just a little confused. We walk them through everything and just make sure there's no questions. And that's also a good time for me to kind of like get an intro to them and their business and stuff like that. So I do onboarding calls. I'm also in Slack twice a day answering questions. And then something that I really enjoy that I get to do is is private calls. So every so often, like during certain points in FCA, clients will get to book a private call with me. And that's really cool because we get to kind of sit down, you know, at the 30-day mark, you know, later on, but like kind of see, how is FCA going so far? What have you learned? What have you been able to implement? Where are you struggling? And it's a total kind of like different conversation depending on who I'm talking to, because people are at different points in their businesses, and someone might be struggling with like schedule efficiency. So we'll kind of go over that on the call and figure out, like, basically solve some of their problems like right on the call. You know, so it's really cool because I get to know like where they're at in their business, what they're struggling with. And then when I see them later on in Slack, you know, we can kind of refer back to that conversation and be like, how are you doing with that situation, and things like that. So yeah, I really like being able to do those private calls for sure.
And I brought Lindsay in, you know, not just because of this, but because Lindsay is actually the only one out of all of us that is a parent.
Okay.
She's the only mom out of all of us, which honestly I still forget sometimes. I don't know why. I think because I like dance with you when you're in Dallas, and I'm like, oh wait, I forget you have children at home.
I'm a cool mom, not a regular mom, you know?
Mom, not a regular mom. And that was a gap that I saw though, right? Because listen, I mean, 80% of that's a made up statistic, but I would say 8 out of 10 of my clients are parents or planning, right? In family planning. And so there's always this challenge of, how can I do this while supporting my family? And oftentimes it's small children, right? Like under the age of 5. And so Lindsay is living proof of that. And now I have to refer to this note that you sent me.
Oh God, here we go. Well, before you read that, I was going to go off of one thing that Elena said earlier about the different perspectives. That's like one thing I think is so cool about FCAs, because we've all built, like, you built a successful fitness coaching business at one point. I've done it, Elena's done it, and we all have different ideal clients, and we've done things a little bit differently. So I think it's really neat how people get different perspectives, because we're giving them the strategy, but at the end of the day, there's going to be this like a way that they want to do it specifically. And so we're giving them like, hey, all these ways work. Here's some different perspectives and ideas. So yeah, go ahead and embarrass me now.
Okay. So Sam, I don't know if you saw this on my Instagram yesterday, but if you didn't, it's a really great treat for you. So Lindsay started an FCA. She's the only person on this call that started an FCA. And this was in August of 2021. And I will never forget our sales call. She literally, I'm trying to think. No, you didn't source her. I was going to say it would be really funny if you sourced her, but it was past that. But I'm like, all right, she sent me this message. She goes, hope this makes you laugh. And I'm like, oh, I'm totally screenshotting this and using this at some point because it's so funny. So listen, the first thing that I have to say is she typed this in her notes app before she DM'd me, y'all. Like literally typed it out. And it says, Good morning, Taylor, sun emoji. That's very important in this whole thing. There's a sun emoji. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me yesterday. It was very insightful, and I absolutely love your energy and your passion. After sleeping on it, as I do with every big decision, I've decided not to enroll in the course at this time. It's a big commitment, and like you said, the people that weren't successful were the ones who didn't put in the work. I want to ensure that I'm in a place in my life where I set myself up for success. And she goes on to say that she wants to leave the Navy, but she's just not ready now. Okay. She needs to wait another year until she can put the time in. I hope there are no hard feelings. And I'm excited to keep following your journey. Thanks again and have a great day. 48 hours later, she joins FCA. 2 years later, she has a 6-figure business and she's doing it on her own. All right. I had to embarrass her because I bring this up not because I think Lindsay is a rock star. I think Lindsay is a really great example, and Elena is too in a different capacity. But Lindsay is a really great example of how pacing looks very different for everybody. Lindsay is somebody that really, really values stability. Now, we all value stability. I mean, I certainly do. But if I were to evaluate all 4 of us on the level of comfort that we have with risk taking, I think you guys know where mine would be. Right? Like, I'm just like 100% risk everything, like whatever, I'm very much like that. Lindsay was at a place where she was like, I have to consider my family, to consider my husband. I'm making a really solid, 6-figure income in the military. Like, I can't just give that up. Right. And she was very practical and very analytical. And so I don't disagree with her thought process. However, I stayed on her because I knew that she was not happy. And she was also doing really cool stuff in the fitness space. Her and her husband already kind of had a podcast going on and things like that. She just needed some business support, right? And so it took 2 years not to get the income. It took 2 years for her to fully go online and trust herself, right? And in that 2-year time frame, she had a second baby, right? So I bring Lindsay up because she truly is the epitome of patience, persistence, and pacing, because there's so much out there right now where it's like, work 2 hours, make 7 figures, like all this BS that we see. And so I wanted to bring everyone on this call because Sam has built a very successful business. Elena has too. Like, you all have in very different ways. And so I think it's important that FCA is not a quick cash course. I think it is, and I don't even call it a course. I really do refer to it as a mentorship half the time. Like, it's so not like in the best way. And I want you guys to all explain before I do it. Whoever can go first, can you explain FCA in just like 1 or 2 sentences? Like, how would you describe it to somebody? And I'm not even looking for a certain answer. I'm just curious to know like how you would describe it to somebody's like, hey, you're part of this thing. Like, what is it? I know it's a hard question. Elena, are you going first? I can't.
Elena, you go. I feel like she wants.
Elena's like inching towards the mic. Oh.
I have referred to it in the past, like as I talk to people, because I get coaches all the time in my DMs, and I've referred people to the program myself, because obviously I'm in the program and I believe in the program and I see people wanting to make a difference. And I kind of refer to it as it's really a business coaching container that gives you the structure and the steps for how to create a sustainable business online in the industry without totally burning out and actually being able to make an impact. I can elaborate, but that's kind of what I got.
I'm always interested because like, I'm not looking for a tagline. Like, I'm not looking for the ultimate 16-week, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not looking for that, but I'm always curious because you all have different perspectives. And I want to hear how each of you highlight different parts of it, because Elena specifically mentioned sustainable and she mentioned without burning out. And I think those are very, very important, because one of the questions that I get a lot is, or I guess objections is, I have a family, I can't invest 20 hours a week. And I'm like, well, I don't know where you came up with that number, but it's not going to be that much of it. Like, Jesus, let's calm down, right? You're not going to lose sleep, right? So curious to know how you guys view it.
I kind of feel like it's like a container, or I guess a mentorship, like you said, where you're able to learn how to turn something that maybe your side hustle into a full-time business, because that's what it was for me. I never envisioned my business going full-time. I didn't realize, maybe I was naive, I didn't realize that people were really making the amount of money that people can make from online coaching. And I just had no idea how. So when I started my business, it was all just, oh, this is fun. It's extra money, right? But you taught me the steps to actually make it, this is a legit business that can bring you full-time income so that you can leave your job and have a more flexible schedule. And so I think like when I'm talking to, the parents and stuff, and it's like what you want your life to look like in, a year, 3 years, 5 years, and we have people do that exercise inside FCA, but you have to kind of design what you want around what you want your life to look like. And so for me, that was building a more flexible schedule, and I couldn't do that unless I was running my own business. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Sam, what about you?
I tell people it's a mentorship for, coaches, health and fitness, to be able to set up the correct foundations in order to grow their business, to make it something, like I said before, to make it something that's not a hobby, to make it something that can actually support you, give you the tools to grow, but then also that individualized support. So like I say, mentorship. And I think a lot of people can think group program or, I'm just getting something thrown at me, but it really is customized in how we support you. Like, yes, there are things you go through and you self-study, but there is so much customized support. Like we ask so much of you, to be able to not like ask so much of you in a negative way, but we ask a lot of our students to be very vocal about where they're at in their process, share what they're working on so they can get that feedback, get that support. And so we can actually move through building these foundations with you rather than just throwing a bunch of education at you and then you wondering, hey, why isn't this working? We don't want you to get stuck on your version 1. We want to help you continue to improve your business and find the correct foundation for you, because it's not going to be the same for every single person.
And that's really where I see a difference, because I will admit that I have never taken a course. I've not like a business coaching course. I never took one. I've always had that one-to-one kind of mentoring. And so with that being my background, when I created this, I had to make sure that it didn't feel like just a set it and forget it experience. Like that's never the environment that I wanted to create. And so the way that I would describe it is, we're giving you individualized attention with a self-paced curriculum. So you have the foundation that works, and then we're going to help you implement that and kind of customize it to what you need, right? And speaking of that, we're talking about FCA, but obviously all 3 of you have your own businesses. So why be involved in FCA? You know what I mean? Like there's a million things you could be doing with your time, and any of you can answer. It doesn't have to be everyone. I'm just curious.
It's fun.
That's what I was going to say.
It's just fun. No, Taylor asks me this all the time. And I think that Lindsay can attest to this because we both work also. Taylor is our mentor on our own businesses. This is not something that detracts from us being able to run our businesses in any way, shape, or form. And it's kind of nice to have something else to kind of focus on that lets you be a part of another community, knowing also that there's people in this I've seen them come through from day one, and now they have these thriving businesses, and now they're coming into even a higher level of support. And that is so cool because I know how valuable that was for my life and what my family needed and what I needed from a personal level to have that flexibility and to have that structure and to have that stability and to know that it's literally statistically impossible for my business to fall apart overnight. Like it literally cannot, like this, it's not statistically possible. You know what I mean? And to know that like I have the skill set that if I want to grow or I want to make leaps, it's just a matter of me turning on certain switches within my business to be able to do that and to show that other people that it's also possible, because that is so close to my heart for people to know that. And that's why I do it. It's fun and it's meaningful. The people in FCA are amazing. Like the students that are in there, they're so much fun to hang out with. Like I love our office hours calls every single week. It's such a good time. Some of them have even become, I consider them friends at this point because I've seen them grow and I've gotten to know them. And at the end of the day, the fitness coaching industry is about building more community and providing more people to change more lives for the better. And no matter who your ideal client is, no matter what your goals are for your business, whether you just want to make like a steady, like 250, 300K a month for the rest of your life, or you want to build a 7-figure machine, we all have that same goal driving us at the end of the day, is to not only meet our own personal goals, but to leave the world a better place.
I agree. I mean, it goes back to like, it's not a place for fast cash. Does that mean that we're moving slow? Absolutely not. Like, do we have clients hit 10, even 15K months? Hell yeah. Is that going to be common for everybody? No, not necessarily, depending on where you're starting. But to me, I think like the stability of what you build, because one thing that I always wonder is like when you see those programs that are like, you know, go from 0 to 10 in 90 days and you see the success, right? I want to see that person's business 2 years from now. What's the after? Can you show me that? Because I'm telling you right now, it's not a thing anymore. I'm telling you right now. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but curious to know why you two, whoever wants to answer, if you want to, why you're involved while you run your own business.
I also think it's fun, and it's been interesting, like over the last, I guess, 2.5 years at this point, like as you grow your business, like people notice and they watch and they ask questions. How did you do that? And, I've never been like, oh, I want to go pivot to business coaching because I love what I do, but it's like a way for me to be able to kind of do a little bit of that, like help people on the business side of things. Cause I do think it's fun and interesting. So I love that. And I also think like being an FCA, maybe this sounds bad, but it's like a little bit of accountability for me too, because I think a lot of times, like once you get to a certain point in your business, you're like, well, for me to grow, or for me to do this, like I have to keep doing more and more and more. And like, I like being in FCA because I'm like, no, we just need to focus on the basics. Like somebody's did like 60 outbound messages today. And I'm like, damn, they did that. Maybe I should be doing that too. Or so I think it's kind of like, it also holds me accountable within my own business to make sure I'm still doing really good at the basic foundational things as I continue to scale as well. So
for me, it's super rewarding. I definitely don't need to have this on my plate, but I love to have it on my plate. I think a big thing for me, even when I started working for myself and running my own business, was in my old job, my corporate job, I didn't feel a lot of purpose, but within this work, I feel tons of purpose, and being able to be connected to more people who are trying to make an impact in the world, who are trying to make a better life for themselves. It's really cool to be involved in that and around that. And like Elena said, the quality of people in FCA are just, everyone's awesome. I love what everyone's doing. I think we have a really high quality type of person, that we bring into FCA as well. I really respect, their methods, process, like the way they coach. So it's just really cool to be in a space of so many people who are just doing so many good things.
One of the things with building a business, and we can all attest to this, right, is it's very lonely. Like it's very challenging. And I'm somebody that didn't go into this with a family, supporting me. Not that I didn't have support, but I was states away. I was doing it on my own. My friends didn't really get it. And, I wanted to build something that I didn't have. Like selfishly, that's really why I do what I do. I'm like, what can I give my clients that I never had? What can I build that I didn't have? And so even in my mastermind, it's kind of the same thing. Like, that's why I started my conference. I'm like, what can I give that I never had? And so for FCA, I'm telling you right now, this may sound woo woo to any of you or whatever. I'm like Miss Independent, so I fucking get it. But you cannot do this by yourself. Like you need peers while you're going through this. And one of my favorite things, and I know you guys have seen it, is we have a channel in Slack that's just like a fun channel. It's literally called like #fun. And they have literal like weekly, sometimes bi-weekly co-working sessions, content sessions, DM sessions. And like, we don't even do anything. We're like, oh my God, this is precious. Like my heart can't take it sometimes. And I just freaking love it because they're like meeting each other and pushing through it together. And the amount of like personal responsibility that they build is amazing, right? Like that's always my goal too, is to make sure that no one feels like, oh, why is it not happening? Right. You know what I mean? To remove that victim mentality. And so when you build the camaraderie that you have, and then you also see the connection that like all three of us have, right? Like we all can go to each other anytime. I know, Sam, you're not in Path 4%, but obviously you're not a fitness coach. So, don't feel like, you're not part of it. Obviously you're just not.
I just need to become one so I can fit in.
You want to just like come to the call sometimes and hang out, whatever you want to
Start
do.
a side hustle,
Add another thing to your plate. The last thing I want to go over, and we don't all have to chime in, whoever maybe wants to, and if not, let me know. But I get the question, about will I get lost? Because, there are definitely a good amount of people in FCA. And we have made it evergreen, which means you can join anytime, right? It's not a live course. So the curriculum is recorded. However, we are coaching you every single day between all 4 of us. So when somebody asks a question, maybe Lindsay, I'll ask you because you do the onboarding calls, right? So how do you kind of make sure that people don't get lost or overwhelmed by Slack and whatever else?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I was actually doing a call with someone yesterday and she said the difference between like FCA and other coaching containers, she felt like she did get lost. Like she would have an issue with something and maybe they did like a weekly check-in and it wasn't like she wasn't really getting the support that she needed. And so she was like, yeah, I already love FCA because of that. But I also feel like you won't get lost if you just show up. Like the people who, Elena's like, I mean, if people come to the office hours and they post in Slack, we're there. But like, it's kind of like, fitness clients. Like if I can do everything to help you, I could send you a message every day. But if you do not show up and do anything, like we can't help you.
That's literally what I was thinking, Lindsay, as like Taylor asked this question and, I'm like, nobody gets lost. They just don't show up. You know what I mean? We know who everybody is. We are so diligent in making sure that we're checking all of the threads and that we're following through on things. And if we're not sure on something, Lindsay and I are constantly having conversations. Taylor and I are constantly having conversations. Sam will loop us into the sales channel if there's a question that's pertaining to a specific topic, just so, even though she's really the sales coach, if there's something that's more nuanced and she'll bring us in. It's literally impossible to get lost unless you just don't show up.
Yeah. I think every thread gets answered.
Yes, 1000%. Everything gets answered. Where I think there sometimes is a disconnect, and I'll kind of walk you through the process if you're listening to this. And I have a video that I can send you in the DM. So you can always DM me about that if you want to see kind of like a walkthrough of like a behind the scenes look. I think people are just very nervous with new technology, right? So when you get into FCA, you are going to obviously have your course login. And then we also have a project management tool, which will tell you exactly what you need to do right now, exactly what you need to do every single week. And you literally check off the boxes, which we are also monitoring. We give you exactly what needs to be submitted every single week. And then on top of that, we have a video that walks you through all of that, right? So there literally is no way that you will get lost. And then every single channel in Slack is broken down by module. So let's say you're at the end of FCA and somebody else is on day 1. You're going to make sure that you're seeing questions that are pertaining to where your business is at right now, not where somebody else is starting out. So everything is very organized. The last thing I want to go over before we dive into a few like FAQs, which I'll have you guys answer, is, we get people all the time. And if you're listening to this, then maybe you've heard me talk about Path to 4% and you're thinking, I want to do that. That sounds great. I get, one-to-one with Taylor, whatever it is, right? And I get these clients, or not clients, I get people in my DMs that'll say, well, I hit a 10K month one time, but my recurring revenue is, $2,000. That's like the most common thing I hear all the time. So people are thinking, well, I've made a 10K month. I don't need FCA. And I want to get your take, whoever wants to go first, on why, number 1, that's not a 6-figure business. And number 2, why they actually need FCA and they need to let their ego chill.
I can answer this.
Yeah, Sam, go.
Just because you have one really great month doesn't mean you can do it over again. So that's the purpose of FCA, is to build those foundations so you can actually create stable, reoccurring monthly revenue, which you'll hear Taylor talk about all the time. You'll see it in her content, you'll see it throughout FCA, because like I said, if your business, if your business isn't making money, it's just a hobby. But if your business is not making money consistently, it's also not something that can support your life. How are you supposed to be able to get a mortgage or, sign a lease on an apartment or, get a car or things like that if you don't know how much money you're bringing in each month? You're basically gambling with yourself. And so by being an FCA, you're setting yourself up for success to have stable income, so you can actually run this as a business and you don't have to work multiple jobs alongside this to live your life and get by.
I agree. I think that having a few really solid months create this false sense of a reality, right? And then the question becomes, how do you sustain it? And again, I keep going back to stability. And I know that's not the sexiest thing to talk about, but I'm here to help you build your best month and then learn how to repeat it every month after that, right? And then if we are falling short anywhere, we're going to know exactly where the gap is to fill, right? But just because you had a 10K month because you had 2 pay-in-fulls or 4 pay-in-fulls or whatever, like that doesn't impress me, right? Like I want to know that you've built stable income and that when you wake up on the 1st of next month, you know exactly what you're going to make and it's the same as last month and it's going to be better, right? And that's what we teach in FCA, which is why I do not let you impact the 4% unless you've built a 6-figure business. And so FCA builds the 6-figure foundation. I talk about 5K months frequently because if you can build a 5K month, you can build a 10K month, right? And that's why I always have to say, especially my coaches that I work with that have been in-person trainers, never been online ever, but maybe they're making 6 figures from in-person training. I still want them to go through FCA because they have no idea how to market or sell anything. They have no idea what their offer is and all of that, right? So, okay, rapid fire. Who should not join FCA? Elena.
Oh God. Who should not join FCA?
Yeah. What's like
think,
client red flag?
I mean, I don't know. I think the biggest red flag I see is really just like people complaining that things aren't working. Or if they're like, well, I've done it this way for so long and they don't want to change how they're doing it because, well, it worked this many times and this is how I want to do it. So if you're not open or willing to try new things, you're probably not going to be successful because we are going to challenge you and we are going to push you, right? Especially like on the revenue thing, right? We talk about the stability of MRR. We don't preach that for shits and giggles, you guys. We want to know that you know that when shit hits the fan and you have a major life event, speaking from personal experience, that your business can sustain itself and that you can be there for who you need to be there for when shit hits the fan in your personal life. Because it's going to. It's not just that we want to slow you down or whatever. We want you to have the big revenue month, but we want you to have a sustainable business more because that's what actually matters in your life. And sometimes because we see so many people come in and they've been doing these paid in fulls, there can be a little bit of resistance at first, and even with DMs or like doing outbound lead generation, people don't want to do that. And it's like, cool, I don't want to eat my fucking vegetables, my broccoli. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay. I feel like you have to be able to think. Like we're in there to give you advice and give perspectives, but you have to take that information and then apply it to other things, right? Like be able to think critically and actually want to work, because we're not there to just like solve all of your problems or write all of your content, or, we're there to give you advice and teach you so you can grow and learn. So yeah, just if you don't want to think about things, then maybe don't join FCA.
This is not a codependency relationship as well, right? So for example, we do content audits. You can submit a caption every single day and we will give you feedback every single day. And once I see a client submitting the same thing multiple times, instead of auditing that caption, I will ask them questions because I see the same mistakes over and over again, right? So, Lindsay said to think critically, and I agree. When something isn't working, where did you learn that in FCA? And then of course, being your own advocate. There's never ever a time where somebody has asked for help and didn't receive it. So I agree with both of you on that. Anything else for who should not join FCA?
I think this word sums up a lot of what you guys already said, but being a self-starter And I think also what another word that comes to mind is leadership, because obviously you're going to be leading the clients that you work with, and leadership doesn't always have to be big, bold, loud, like some people might think of, associate with that word. Leadership can also be like gentle, nurturing, and things like that. But I think leadership is super important within being a student in FCA, because you have to be willing to look for the answers, be willing to ask for help, show up despite like how you feel or whatever's going on. So I think that goes hand in hand with just a lot of what you guys have said so far. And, we want people who want to be a leader, because those are going to be the people who have really successful businesses, because they're in the business of trying to help people, in their own lives, like do better and be better as well.
I think that you made a really good point, Sam, and like people being able to show up regardless of how they feel. And I've said this before on multiple office hours calls, but I'm like, your success does not care about your feelings. Do you want to build a business, or do you want to have a side hustle at the end of the day?
Like I said, it's not, I mean, FCA is challenging because it's the first, in my opinion, it's the course, mentorship, whatever you would like to consider it. It's the spot where you're going to realize very quickly if this is for you or if it's not for you. And I think it's important to say that entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Some people need to be employees. They do. Some people need to be employees, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, right? But if you come in and you are just a warm body in a seat, you are not going to succeed. If you come in, you do the work, you implement, you ask questions. Our most successful clients are in Slack damn near every day, right? And the reason it is 4 months long is because we don't make this a sprint. We make this a marathon, and we have alumni support afterwards. So a majority of clients that end up running a 6-figure business through FCA are spending anywhere from 2 to 4 months in our alumni afterwards, where they do get an additional office hour with myself. They get an additional Slack channel just for them. Like, there is a way to continue to scale your business. But again, like, I think knowing what you want and why, because I would say you are not meant for FCA. Do not apply if you just want to make money. That's what I would say. If your only motivator is money, like, I don't want you, because that's just not the motivator here. And then my final question for all of you is, were you paid to be here?
I wasn't paid to be here, but I luckily do get paid for the work I do.
Did I pay you to be on this podcast? Not do I pay you in FCA?
No.
We all work for free.
I mean, you do pay in FCA. But...
Yes, I pay all of you. Yes, but oh yeah, tip of the day: if you want to have a really successful business, don't pay your contractors. Yeah, for sure. No.
No, we were not paid to be here.
We were not paid.
I did not pay you to be here. Cool, awesome. Well, if you have any questions for any of us, you can always reach out, but hopefully this answered all of your questions. Any last words from you guys? Anything I didn't cover that I should have?
I hope we didn't scare people away. Like, FCA is really fun. Like, people learn a lot. Like, I mean, it's a really fun place to be, like, growing your business. So like, don't be scared, like, just because there's going to be some challenges and like we might hold you accountable, but like it's a good place to be. So
I always tell people, who I was before entrepreneurship and who I am now, I think one of the most amazing gifts of being an entrepreneur that you'll experience if you go through FCA and you're able to do all this is the amount of personal growth that you have to go through is incredible. You show up so much more in so many more areas of your life. And so that's sort of one of the perks of doing this and being your own self. And the buck really does stop with you. It's challenging, but it is so, so rewarding. And so if you are feeling called to that, you want more, well, we'll see you in Slack, maybe.
We'll see you in Slack, maybe.